I have a few announcements, and then after that, we will turn it over to Cecile, who will talk about our trip report and new trips. And then Rod McCready will introduce our presenter for this evening, Kim Selvage, after that. So I just wanted to make a couple of quick announcements. We have a Wilderness First Aid 101 webinar that is sponsored by the New Mexico Economic Development Department Outdoor Recreation Division. You have to register. It's on March 30th at 1 p.m. It's virtual. So, you know, please get in contact with them through their website. If you have any problem getting through to register for this webinar, please let me know, and we will send you the information that we received. We are going to have a raffle for 5 Los Alamos Mountaineers members for all our great swag. You have to be a member to be a part of the raffle. So if you haven't renewed your membership or become a member yet, this might be a good time to do it. So you might get some additional nice Mountaineers t-shirts or something else. We are going to continue the spring blowout cleanup in April for basically in honor of Earth Day. We will have prizes and of course the notoriety of anybody who gives us pictures of the trash that they've cleaned up. This is an on your own activity, and we expect that you know where that trash is in Los Alamos, that or the Los Alamos area, that you can pick up and make our trails cleaner and more enjoyable, and we'll give you a prize. So we appreciate whatever efforts you can offer for that. Lastly, we did have a finalization of the Avalanche course, and Michael Altair was the instructor for that. It was a virtual course. He is asking that if you were a student in that course, could you please provide him with input so that he can provide that information? It's good information for him, but he's going to share that information with the Los Alamos Mountaineers as well, so we can see how this pilot course did. And Michael Altair has also offered to help any other mountaineers who want to develop a learning course that's virtual. He's happy to help you. So please let us know if you're interested in putting something together. With that, I will hand it over to Cecile. And thanks again for being a part of our club meeting tonight.
Thank you, Melanie, and welcome to the March meeting of the Los Alamos Mountaineers. It's nice to start a meeting when it's still daylight. It hasn't happened in a while. So welcome to spring, and as you'll see, the activities I'm going to be presenting show that we're transitioning from winter to spring, with still some snow activities, but also desert hikes and mountain biking. So we had 2 club-sponsored activities last month. One was hiking to the top, well, a snow cross-country and snowshoeing trip to Jawbone Mountain, which is located near the Hopewell Lake on Highway 64. And there were 11 participants, 6 snowshoers and 5 cross-country skiers. So we all started together. The trip was an out and back, 3 miles to the top with the 800 feet elevation gain. everybody made it to the top, and we had some gorgeous 360 views from the top. So the snowshoers were led by Olivia Lee, and they had to navigate some pretty steep terrain. And cross-country skiers were led by Jean Dewart. This past Sunday, Bill Pidorsky took 7 hikers to explore the Slick Rock at the end of the mesas close to Ghost Ranch on Highway 84. So now for the individual trips, I just want to mention that the trip report is not intended to give very detailed account of all the individual trips, but if any of you is interested in getting more information about trips, please send me, just email me, and I think Beth will put my email address in the chat. And I will put you in contact with the person who sent me the pictures. So if at any time you want more information about the specific trip, just email me and I'll put you in contact. So Melanie and other fellow mountaineers skied Pajarito. Bill caught his biggest ever trout in the Rio Grande. Larry and Laura explored the Vista Trail, which is located northwest of Ghost Ranch. Norman, his wife and dog hiked the Arroyo de la Presa and Arroyo del Ojitos, and those trailheads are 8 miles north of Espanola on Highway 84. Thea, Dennis, Don, Gwendolyn, and their dog Lucy hiked the Ancho Canyon, which is south of White Rock. The trailhead is about 3 miles south of White Rock. And Dave Brown celebrated his 91st birthday on Neblina Trails, which is a trail here in town. And by the way, it's a trail that's described on the PEEC website. PEEC has a link to a trail guide, so all those local trails can be found on the PEEC website. Nathan and Brett did a 3-day bikepacking trip near Santa Fe. And they rode 51 miles. And that's a picture of their itinerary with day 1 in orange, day 2 is in purple, day 3 is in blue. And if you'd like more information about their route, about their trip, the logistics, and you can email Nathan, and Beth will put his email address in the chat as well. And also Nathan created an awesome video of the trip, and Beth is also going to put a link to that YouTube video showing their adventure. Brett and Andy, so Brett did another bikepacking trip, this time near Abiquiu, over 3 days, and this one was 53 miles long, and they climbed 6,000 feet of elevation gain, and they did run into a lot of snow and mud on their second day. So that's their itinerary. But again, if you want more details, you can email Brett, and Beth will share his email information in the chat. So the upcoming trips, we have the Llama trip in April is full, and they're in the final doing the final planning for that trip. The Montana trip, raft trip, is full and has a waiting list. The Moab trip in November is also full with a waiting list. And Bill let me know that he's gonna put out an announcement soon about a Llama trip in October. So keep an eye out for that announcement. As always, if you're interested in leading a trip, you can find some resources on the Mountaineers website, and also you can email me if you'd like support organizing your trip or even co-leading your trip.
Okay, I've been looking forward to this talk. I know Kim is outgoing and cheerful, and she's going to give a great talk. She said she was born in Texas, but moved around as a kid. And I always ask the speakers if their parents got them into the outdoors, camping or hiking or anything. And she said, while her parents didn't really do that, they did encourage her and her sister to get out and play in the woods. And she credited them in that way for igniting her love of the outdoors. She moved to Los Alamos in 1993 and got involved with the Mountaineers pretty quickly after that, at the urging of Howard Hillard, who some of you might know. With the club, she's done some 14er trips. She led a trip to Yosemite and was a volunteer with the Meltdown climbing event that you might remember from years past. She did say she didn't mind me mentioning that she was 50 years old when she took this trip that she's going to tell you about. So, you know, young and old can do it, and people in between. So without anything further, let's welcome Kim Selvage.
Thank you. Should I go ahead and start sharing my screen?
Yep.
So first of all, I need to thank everyone for taking the time to listen and hear about this little adventure that I got myself into. So I decided to do the Appalachian Trail, and I'll go to it in a second, but in 2020, seemed like a good year to do it. The title came about, Remain Fluid Because Flexible is Too Rigid. A friend of mine who actually did the trail in 2016 had that saying, and it felt very appropriate for this hike. So in the big scheme of things, I started in February 26th last year, and I finished October 23rd of the same year, of course. We're gonna see if it goes to the next one. I might have to, there, okay. Move this little bar. So I cannot see my title yet. So let me move that over somehow. That should work. All right, so my goals for the presentation. I just want to put those out there so you can understand where I'm coming from with this. I want to share my hike and some of my favorite photos. I took a ton of photos on the hike. I also want to inspire you guys to get outdoors and unplug. We have so much computer time, and so just if you can get some fresh air, I don't care if it's for 5 minutes, but just get outside. I want you to also use this as an opportunity to encourage everyone to join the Los Alamos Mountaineers Club and PEEC. And if you're not from the area, then I'm sure you have an organization that's doing some amazing things, teaching about the outdoors and how you can be safe out there. So I would highly recommend you get involved with one of those organizations. I definitely want to thank all those who encouraged me along the way, because what I mean by that is the before, during, and after. It's been quite the ride, and I just appreciate everyone who is supporting me. And then this might be a little surprising, but I want to appreciate the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. There's a lot of talk about it, but they started the trail maintenance. It was a little late because of COVID, but they did start trail maintenance in June on the trail, and they funded this thing that I'll talk about more. But the Kennebec River, you cannot walk across, so they actually pay for someone to ferry you across to the other side. And so they had that running last year. And then they also had a visitor center, which was quite helpful before I summited Katahdin. So those are my thank yous. It looks like I need to use my mouse. Okay, I'm gonna just keep moving this thing back and forth. So I have two things on here just because I thought this was kind of fun. This came to my attention actually yesterday or today, but basically from the CDC, they have a fun thing on here that basically says, get out there and hike. And I agree with them. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. The whole point was, I love that they talk about getting out there and hiking. And then it says, you know, each time you go hiking, try to go a little further and take a slightly steeper trail. Before you know it, you'll be hiking the Appalachian Trail. And when I saw that, I just thought that was great. And that's on their website at this very moment. And then the Appalachian Trail in general, this year was 2,193 miles. It bounces, and I have a slide later that'll say through the years how it's kind of changed. But the gist of it is people typically go from Georgia to Maine, and I'll have a map later, so I will keep moving. And this will probably surprise a few people, but I want to do a special thanks for the Mountaineers Club, PEEC, for giving me this opportunity to share. And I try not to be one of those through hikers when you walk into a room, the first thing they talk about is, oh, by the way, I did the trail last year. So, so this is kind of nice for me to be able to talk to people that want to hear about the trail. And I decided, I was thinking about Los Alamos Mountaineers Club, and they really did inspire me to get out there and do these hikes. And so you're going to see some names up here. And I think some of them hopefully are listening, but Norbert, Mario, and Paul, and I should even say Lynn, were all part of my beginning introduction to hiking, and they helped us with some trips and taught me some things. And actually, when I was doing a lot of the granite hiking in Maine, I was thinking of all the granite stuff we did, like in TP and some other places, Tres Piedras, for those who are not from the area. Jan Studebaker actually gets a shout out because when I went to his 50th birthday party, and I won't go into details about the party, but he was 50 years old. And I remember him saying that he was in the best shape of his life. And so needless to say, when I turned 50 and I was on the trail, and I actually turned 51 while hiking, but I thought about Jan and just thinking about what an awesome adventure it was for me to be 50 and on the trail. So shout out to Jan. Stu Bowling, we just did some amazing adventures together. So I wanted to give him a shout out. And then my dear friend, Gina, we did so many things, but these are all people from the club from early on. There's so many that are in the club now that I know that I appreciate and have done great things with, but I wanted to give them a special shout out. And then following in that line, there's a thing called trail angels on the trail. And so I captured a few photos. This is not everyone. These are people along the way that just poof, appeared and helped me with things. And I can't even really begin to thank you. I'm not going to go through all of it, but everyone you see on here, they have a heart of gold, and they did things not without being asked. And it was just unbelievable. So now I have a few little expectations I want to put out there for the presentation, because I'm going to do it in a kind of a unique way. I want you to play along with me and pretend to let things unfold as if we don't know about what 2020 is going to bring. In other words, I don't want to bring in COVID or the ATC or any of that stuff until it actually becomes part of my hike. There's a phrase that I learned on the hike, and I think it's very nice, and it's called hike your own hike. You know, there are some people who hike the trail fast. There's some that do it slow. There's some people that do it, you know, over years. And there are some people who do it with heavy backpacks and some people who do it ultralight. The point is, your hike is your own hike, and I'm going to share my hike. It's not how you should do it. It's how I ended up doing it. So judge-free zone. I'm going to talk to you like you're my friend, even though if I've never met you. And I'm just going to be real and tell you how things played out. I'm going to say the word AT as much as I can because Appalachian Trail bothers some people because it's Appalachian for other people. So I will try to just say AT. And I'm going to try to keep it to 2 minutes per slide just so we have time for some questions at the end, because that's probably a fun part for you guys. And I'm sure I'll forget something or stutter or something, but just know that I had a great time and I'm hoping to share it with you. And that's my ultimate goal. All right, I'm going to throw in some phrases real quick just because these were new to me and I'm hoping they're going to help you guys. Flip-flop, that's where you don't go from north to south or south to north. You actually hop around. So I will explain that when I happen to have that part of my hike. Blue blaze. This is interesting because I would say blue blaze, but really the phrase is when you walk, you use a blue blaze to bypass certain parts of the trail, but I actually blue blazed because I wanted to see extra parts. So there might be a blue blaze from the trail that's to a waterfall. So I would do an out and back. So I didn't use blue blazes to go around something, but I would use a blue blaze to see more. And that was one of my goals, was of the 2,193 miles, I'm positive I did well over 100 more miles on blue blazes in seeing extra stuff. Kobo is a new phrase, and that's where you skip all over because certain parts of the trail were closed and at different times. So people were, if they stayed on the trail, they tried to stay on and hop around like the Smokies when they closed or whatever. Nero is when you do a short day. Novo is northbound. PUDs, never heard of that before. Pointless ups and downs, and there were a lot of PUDs. Slack pack is where you actually have a just like almost like a day pack, and you can go a little bit faster, or if you're having trouble with some body part, maybe it can take the pressure off of your knee or your back or your whatever. Sobo is south, so Maine to Georgia. Trail Magic, I showed you angels. Well, magic, oh boy, that was such a unique and fun thing. Acts of kindness that are bestowed upon hikers from usually other hikers or people that they want to give back to the trail. Tramily is the word trail and family combined. And that's very common to have these little groups that would form together, not typically on purpose, they just happen. And a zero is when you don't hike at all. So you take a break, which I did not want to do a zero, but once I did my first zero, I realized how important it was for my body. All right, so what caused me to hike? Well, it all started from this epic photo I'm showing you right now from a friend of mine. I had never heard of Maxi Knob, and it was a friend of mine who I just saw that photo and I was like, oh my goodness. So I started learning what they had done. This was in 2016 that they were hiking and they're going to do the PCT this year. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this one day. So that was planting the seed. So what are other things that allowed me to hike? One is my awesome kids are in college and they're on their own. And I put that I was healthy and in quotes young, because I think that's all relative. And I honestly needed a break from people and work. And hopefully people are laughing at that. But so my idea of doing the hike was to actually social distance in its ultimate form before that was a thing. The work, I absolutely loved my job. I was working in Vegas. They were awesome people. And I worked for a company called PM Tech. And I absolutely adore them. But I had worked nonstop since 8th or 9th grade. And I just needed a break. So I took one. And I wanted to unplug because the world is just so electronic right now. And I figured this was a good way to unplug. And then just to simplify my life, because when you're on the trail, you put everything you want in a backpack and you basically survive out of that. Okay, so what did I do to get ready for the hike? Well, I had to do my taxes. I created food boxes. I did a shakedown hike, and this was in Vegas, but yes, there's actually snow in Vegas. This was near Mount Charleston, kind of. I had to go and buy some lighter gear and sub out some things that I had before. I had to put this on here. I put not over research trail. I did not want to know everything about the trail. I wanted things to unfold and surprise me. And so that was just my choice. Put items in storage, which was actually a big deal. Set up transportation to get to the approach trail. Thankfully, I talked to this person that I had not met, and they referred me to a lady who could help me. Her name was Rocky. So T told me to talk to Rocky, and Rocky got me to the trail. I went to the dentist. I got my hair cut. I actually cut off 13 inches. That's my hair right there. And then I had a doctor visit. I did a colonoscopy for the fun of it since I was 50. And then I actually did something a little unique. I did measurements. I don't know if you can see this, but I did measurements of everything from bone density to my blood work. I did everything because I wanted to see the impact of the trail on my body. And then of course, I did blood work. So I had some personal goals, and the first one, and this is kind of funny how this all plays out, but basically I wanted to start, like I said, and go true Novo, go true north to south, south to north. And I wanted to start in February, finish by July. And I started early because I thought if I was slow, I wouldn't have to worry and rush. And again, we don't know how things are going to play out yet. I wanted to do this completely solo. I did not want anyone, you know, taking away from my experience. And, you know, I wanted to do this on my own. And anyway, that's, for those who know me, that probably makes a lot of sense. I wanted to stay away from the bubble. And the bubble is basically a concentrated group of hikers. There's a whole bunch of bubbles happening right now. To no surprise, there were not many bubbles last year. I wanted to keep my pack weight around 20 pounds, including food and water. And I wanted to take care of my feet at all costs, take tons of photos, and use the time on the trail to kind of bring up some things that have happened in my life, good and bad, and process them, because I think I was always so busy, I never did. And then I had a different side goal, and that was to maintain my weight plus or minus 5 pounds. And some people on their first month might lose 30 pounds. I wanted to eat a certain way. That's part of my story, but I didn't want to gain weight or lose weight. So I wanted just to kind of maintain and find a healthy balance. And then you will see, I have my little status here. I did not make all my goals, and you can probably guess why some of these did not work, but I did not go true Nobo. I did not finish in July. Some days I decided to hike faster than others and rush. And typically almost every single time I rushed, I got hurt. I ended up meeting people on the trail. And so I did not do some parts solo. I did stay away from the bubble. I kept my pack weight down. I hurt my feet many different ways, like pretty much any way you could possibly hurt them. And I still took photos and all the other things that I mentioned. All right, let's talk about food. So I have a little thing on the right that lists some of the food that I ate. I tried to do what I call real food. A lot of people on the trail believe they can eat whatever they want. And you know what? Hike your own hike. They can have whatever they want. I wanted to do it eating real food. So a friend of mine, and I have a little shout out to Paul from Superhuman Transformation. I made all these little boxes of food that you can see in the back of his Jeep. And I had those shipped to me at different places where I thought I might have trouble buying certain type of food. My son made me beef jerky, which I made stretch out for as long as possible. It was amazing. I would barter with people. So like one person, I traded her some, beef jerky, let's say, for some pemmican. So here's some pemmican right there. And then I had bacon almost every day on the trail. I did not carry a stove. So I did things that were cooked ahead of time. And then when I would go to a trail town, if I was staying at a hostel, I would cook food. If I was at a restaurant, I would order food. And then this weird looking concoction down here is I didn't eat bread. So this little thing down here is all the toppings from a pizza that I wadded up into a little ball and ate it. I know that sounds weird, but whatever. And the top right shows you that I also did some foraging and eating off of the land, which honestly was my favorite. Okay, some fun little statistics. So I already told you last year, it was 2,193 miles. The fun things is the highest elevation is 6,643 feet, and that's Klingman's Dome, which is what this foggy picture is, and that's exactly how it looked when I went there. This is me at the top. I like this little phrase that I will be honest, I didn't understand it until the very last day of my hike, but it says the last one to finish wins. Some people say the last one to get to Katahdin, but that obviously does not work for me. And I think this is kind of cool. When you hike the Appalachian Trail, AT, 16 times is equivalent of climbing up Mount Everest. 16 times, that's crazy. It takes people 5 to 7 months-ish. And we go through 14 states. Fun facts. All right, so a few things I tried to live by my pack. This is a big one. Light is right, less is more, and keep it simple. So my routine was very simple. My pack weight with food and water was at 20 pounds. Here you can see I'm weighing it at one of the places, and I would always kind of check it to make sure I had to adjust it throughout the hike, and I can explain that a little more later. And you can see the crazy stuff I was hiking. Like this is a ladder that they had in place to get up something. A light pack helps. All right, my timeline. So this is kind of before the trail started, before I got it on the trail. The first thing was I officially decided in my head, okay, you're gonna do this trail. As soon as I made that decision, let's see if this works. There was a train derailment in December, and there's a picture of it, Harper's Ferry. That is part of the Appalachian Trail, the AT. That is how you cross that body of water. And that was closed for a long time. I will have a timeline later to show you when it opened back up. But this was quite interesting. Okay, so that was in December. January, I actually gave my notice to work at the end of January. And February, I'm getting ready to go. And a week before I go, there's actually someone got lost on the approach trail. And unfortunately, they passed away due to the elements. So I had this kind of like, I don't know. It was a shock to know that I was about to start a trail that's already, it gave me to be very focused and serious about this endeavor and not to take it lightly. And then there were many different little fires on the AT, but the one in February before I got started was in New Jersey. All right, here we go. I think you guys are gonna get a kick out of this, especially my Los Alamos people. But I told you I talked to someone on how to get there. Well, I was in Vegas, so I flew to Atlanta, Georgia. And no joke, I look out the window and would you believe the Valles Caldera and Los Alamos, and I could see the ski hill, and especially snow made it easy to see some things. But this is me, at the end of February flying over Los Alamos from Vegas, and I can't even tell you how that felt. Then I got into the airport, and then I took a little train, Marta, and then I got picked up by my sweet trail angel, Rocky, and she got me to the trailhead of the approach trail. So Amicalola Falls, they have beautiful waterfalls. She gave me like a little private tour, and we did a little walking around, and I got my tag, and I played around and did my little handstand. We saw a broken, very old truck that's growing up a tree, and it was just a pretty cool start. Some people, you don't have to do the approach trail, but I wanted to do it as part of my hike. So that's not included in the 2,193 miles. The trail, the approach trail, is considered a blue blaze. So there were blue marks on the trees. These are blazes, and I just wanted to point this out. There's some things happening here, but you can see this is where there was the paint for the blue blazes. Here they put it down on the ground. They were actually painting blazes while I was walking. This was later on the hike. And then here's a normal one. This would basically mean keep going straight ahead. And you could almost always just look out there and see another blaze. On the roads, this is a little obnoxious, but I thought it was funny to show. But there's a whole bunch of blazes. Here's one on a rock in a field. And this one is really kind of funny because typically it would have been the other way. If you looked at this one, normally that would tell you to turn left, but someone painted it wrong. So this one has little arrows saying, go right. So anyway, thought that one was funny. So I decided to include that one. And this is a really cool one. This is the Kennebec River. They put a blaze on the bottom of the canoe that ferries you across to the other side. And you can see how big that body of water is. So those are blazes. And that leads us to, we are officially on the trail now. So thank you for hanging with me on all that. And I'm gonna go pretty quick on these, but I just have my favorite slides and I'll just show you, this is how they're always gonna kind of sort of look. Not always temperature, but you'll see. All right, miles. I did, this one was 76 miles to get across Georgia. The highest point was a little over, well, about 4.5 feet, 4,500 feet. My favorite memory was finding my second blaze. What do I mean by that? Well, when you get started, you see this thing, you've probably seen this before, and there's a white blaze. I'm not kidding. Before I started, I couldn't find the second blaze, and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I can't even get started on the trail. It was very cold my first night, and it took me 8 days to get across Georgia. All right, so this is my follow-up slides. This just shows you it was cold. There's, you can see I tented, but there's a shelter where people stayed. It was packed with people because they were there early to avoid the weather. I hiked till the dark. My normal routine was sunrise to sunset. I was so excited because there was a nice big old prairie, and I found out that you want to keep moving to stay warm. North Carolina's next, 96 miles approximately. North Carolina also, I never knew if I was in North Carolina or Tennessee because it just kind of weaved back and forth. So Hopefully my photos are straight, but I could have accidentally shown you something in the wrong state because it was very confusing. But highest point, 5,000 feet-ish. Favorite memory, first shelter experience, days to finish, 10. So these are different parts of the little highlights of the trail, though I'm not gonna probably say it right, but I'm not gonna even try. Bald. This is a tree that everyone knows and they think of, and it's actually right when you get into North Carolina. This is the NOC, and remember that because I'm gonna tell you about the NOC later on something that happened. And let's say, you see this and you know you're crossing into North Carolina, Georgia. So from Georgia to North Carolina. And this is just how beautiful it was. All right, I can't even describe the beauty of this, but the thing that was cool about this is this was my first shelter stay. And I made a friend Radar, and that's actually when he got his name. He told us, hey, don't keep hiking. There's a big storm coming. And you know what? We decided to hunker down and I stayed dry, and I made friends, and it was just a great experience. And there's a picture of me going to that tower that I showed you earlier. All right, Tennessee. All right, there was 288 miles. So Tennessee was quite longer than the others. And this is when things are starting to get a little bit different. When I got to Standing Bear, a really good friend that I met on the trail, not a good friend, but someone I met on the trail, was actually going home because of the whole pandemic, and at this time we were calling it coronavirus. And so all of a sudden, we're realizing that things are just a wee bit different. Here's the Klingman's Dome again, highest point on the AT that I showed earlier. And it took me 14 days to get through this state. You can see there's fire towers. I ended up loving them. Charlie's Bunyan was a great view. That was probably one of my better views. Max Patch. I love these little fire and overlook towers. I got a kick out of I-40 because sure enough, that's the same I-40. So here I am crossing it on the trail, and that takes me all the way back to Albuquerque. So kind of crazy. Then I'm going to talk about this real quick, but basically you can see how foggy it was. Here's what my tent set looked like when the weather was nice. You didn't need the fly on. Why am I showing you a car with a friend in it? Well, because at some point along this time, we're now realizing that things are changing. And so I had a friend bring me food that I knew from high school, a great guy, Steve, and he brought food that he had picked up for me so that I didn't have to go into town and get food. So that was a creative way, and I really appreciate him doing that. And he helped me out another time later. And then while I was in Hot Springs, this is when I realized things were getting serious because everything was closed. I got the last hotel room. The next day they were kicking everyone out. And so I actually got rid of some of my clothes. This is me just doing laundry, but I had to get rid of my clothes and put more food. And so I was carrying, instead of 4 to 5 days worth of food, I had to carry about 7 days because I did not know when I was going to be able to resupply. This is just some pretty photos that I can't even describe. I didn't do anything. This is off of my camera. This is how beautiful it was. There were some clouds, but the sun was shining through. And this was right before I stayed at the highest shelter on the AT at 6,000 feet. All right, now I'm in Virginia. This looks a little different because I only did 3 miles to Damascus. It's March 30th, and lo and behold, I get a letter from the ATC, and it basically says, get off the trail. We've decided this is a serious deal. We've closed things. They've been closing things behind me, but I was always one step ahead of the closures. And my last thing was, I got to Damascus and Virginia was shutting down, and I'll show you a timeline in a second, but I had to make a decision. So I made the decision to pause my hike. I could have flown for like $75, but I didn't know what was going on because I really had been in the woods. And so I made a decision to drive. I got a vehicle that I could sleep in. I rented it. It was ridiculously expensive because it was a one-way rental. I drove to avoid a plane. I went to this was my thinking. I went to the most expensive gas station so I could avoid people, because it's so funny, a gas station could be, half a cent less and people will go across the street. So I went to the expensive place just to have less exposure. And I'm quite honestly proud of my decision. All right. So This is about the ATC just a little bit. In 2020, they encouraged all the hikers to pause their hike. These are the other things they did. They started the trail maintenance in June. They paid for the Kennebec, which I mentioned earlier, and the kiosk. Here's an example of, this is what the kiosk looked like, and I was so thankful for it. And then for this year, 2021, they're saying if you hike on the AT in 2021, it's your decision, but please plan appropriately, be safe, social distance and whatnot. All right, here's my timeline. These are just, I'm not going to go through it because I think it's going kind of long, but the red are things that closed. The things that are green are things that opened. And my point is, I kind of kept track of all this stuff, but basically, you know, some things opened and closed because of COVID and some things were not because of COVID. But I was one step ahead of it, and I took pride in not breaking any rules because I really wanted to do this and be able to share my story. So I did everything I could to respect the closures and the social distancing. Okay, what did I carry? Well, you see two different groups because the one on the left would be what I started with. And you can see my little water shoes, and I'm going to talk about them in a little bit. My big old boots, and yes, I changed to trail runners. Some of the stuff I got rid of immediately. My micro spikes I kept till after the Smokies. And then when I went back in June, I had a new set of stuff, not necessarily new equipment, but new items. Some good, some still I got rid of. All right. There were tons of different restrictions, and I think there are every year. This year we had burn bans. We had this famous over shelter closed due to structural concerns. So that was kind of a bummer because it was a cool big red barn. Detours because of damaged bridges all over the place. And then there were COVID related closures, no camping in Massachusetts, so no overnights, no using privies or shelters in some of the states, and the huts in New Hampshire were closed, kind of. You couldn't sleep in them, but some of them were serving food. So after 80 days, I got back on the trail. Virginia is 550 miles, more or less. So I hit Virginia and the weather was beautiful. It's June. I'm just, you know, getting through this, enjoying it. I wanted to do the Shenandoah so badly, and they were closed when I got off the trail, and I waited till they opened back up, and that was my deciding factor. And so you can see it's 94 degrees and it feels like 101, but here are some of my photos. This is a bear encounter, not a bear sighting. It was a mama bear and a baby bear, and it made my heart stop, but it was okay. Grayson Highlands, everyone talks about. The wild ponies are amazing. And then the Kiefer Oak is the oldest oak in the South. There's another one up north on the trail. That's great. All right, this group of family, they ended up being very, very special to me. And you might see them in a few other photos, but just know that this family really made my second part of my hike. My solo hiking has now shifted. This is what one of the shelters looks like. This is just a barn. I took a zillion naps. I have the weather's nice now. So I would find a shade by a river or a stream and take a nap. My game has changed. I'm not rushing. I'm going to take in every moment. Here is a beautiful owl that wanted us to take its photo. When I say us, this is my friend Hopper. He helped me night hike, so I was safe. Awesome kid, and he just killed it. He was such a fast hiker. This is called the Guillotine. There's also the Dragon's Tooth. Here's a bridge, McAfee Knob, just some overall photos. I'm just gonna go through them. Snakes everywhere. The best way to see a snake is to be afraid of them because they will appear everywhere. I love snakes, but Hopper, he said by the end of his hike, he was not afraid of them anymore. Trail magic. So you're gonna see this guy often. I met this person in the Shenandoahs, then he wanted to do some trail magic for me. So he brought me some food and things that were along the things that I liked. And then we did a little bit of the hike with the thing called the roller coaster. We had so much fun. He said, hey, I was gonna go do the JMT, but you know what? Maybe you want, I can join you up in the Whites. And so he actually did a little bit of Maine and some of New Hampshire with me. And his name's Michael, or 5 o'clock. All right, so I made the choice. When I got to Harper's Ferry, I looked at the time and I didn't think I could get to Katahdin, Maine in time without rushing. And I didn't want to rush my hike. So I get out at Harper's, and this family that I told you that I was already very close to, they said, hey, Kim, we got a deal for you. One of our daughters would like to finish up her through hike. She needs to do the 100-mile wilderness to Katahdin. You want to join us? I said, yes. So they drove first, because of COVID, these are all some of the little notices, but we went in and we got our little test so we could have a piece of paper saying that we did not have COVID. And we then drove to Maine and we hit the trail. We kept social distance. We always did the, mask and all that other stuff. Okay, this will kind of give you an idea. I started in February, made it to, Virginia by March, got off the trail, but, I picked up back at Virginia and I made it to Harper's Ferry, which is West Virginia. Then I popped all the way up here in August. And then I worked my way solo after I did this little bit north. Then I went south all the way back down to Harper's. That's it. Just took me a long time. All right, I'm in Maine now. Maine is awesome. 281 miles. There's water everywhere. We weren't on the trail for 30 minutes and a moose comes charging down at us, but not in a mad way. He was scared. This is going up to Katahdin, just to give you kind of a little reference of what's happening here. There's a picture of me at the top, which I think you've already seen. Wind. I thought it was windy up there until I got further on in the trek. Kennebec, that's going across the river ferrying. They would only let one person at a time following all the COVID stuff. Oh, well, whoops. I'll go back. This person I knew I saw him before COVID even was a thing. He got off the trail because he had a kind of a little bit of giardia, so he had to go to the hospital. He came back on the trail, and then here I am going, and I run into him. I'm going south, and he's going north, and he's about to finish. So that was very exciting to see hot grease. All right, these are just some pictures. There's my good old granite. That's the trail. All of these things are the trail. I mean, it's just crazy. That's the trail. And then that would be a beaver. And this is the family, and this is the daughter who finished up her through hike at Katahdin. All right, there's some more photos. Mahoosic Notch. I can't even explain all the fun stuff. Hiking. This is at the top. When you're above tree line, they let you know because it can be a little bit dangerous. You actually walk up this thing. It's crazy. When you're not hiking, you can do some fun stuff. We played putt-putt, went on a canoe, museums. I played pool, good form right there. I didn't actually get to drive this thing, but it was kind of fun to play with. Even did a little paddle boarding. So it's funny, but I never thought that the hike would be more than just hiking. All right, 161 miles. Highest point, Mount Washington. That was epic. The wind I was not prepared for. Holy smokes, knocked me off my feet. Look at this. The wind is actually, it caused these ice crystals to go up. A tad bit cold, and then a few hours later, you're just melting. But another friend, this is the one who got off during that standing bear that I talked about, and then he actually got back on the trail, and this is a great YouTube, he does some YouTubes, and so awesome people here. So I have a story about my camping water shoes. I bought some heavy duty Merrell water shoes. That's what they look like. My feet, you'll hear that your feet swell. Well, sure enough, by March 8th, so just like 10 days later, I can't wear these shoes. They're not comfortable. So I put them in the hiker box in the NOC, like I told you. Well, sure enough, so I'm hiking and a girl has shoes that look just like my shoes. And so I said something to her and she's like, holy cow. She's like, is your name Muon? And I said, yeah. And she's like, no way. Those were my shoes. And I put my name on my shoes when I first started out and I had my little Sharpie. And so I did not make it true Nobo, but my shoes did. She promised to take them up to Katahdin and then she took a photo for me. So I really wish I could see your guys' faces right now, but it was a very cool story. All right, so now I'm hiking. I've got a hiking buddy now. And well, actually not this, when I was in Smart, he was already gone at this point. But so there's Michael or 5 o'clock, there's a fire tower. I slept in it and that was so awesome. Here's what, just take your time, enjoy the views. Rain comes and goes. The granite was very, very dangerous on the granite. I had pretty big falls, but you just kind of got to watch out for that. Vermont was probably actually my favorite place because the food, there was fresh grapes and raspberries and blueberries and oh my gosh, I ate my way through Vermont. 150 miles took me 9 days. Here are some of the beautiful views. This warming hut saved me because I had a very, very wet night and I was able to go to this warming hut and it had electricity. Nobody was there, but I could lay out my stuff and just kind of get that chill out of the air. Here I am soaking my feet. There's a little newt or two playing with me. And yes, there are even leeches. I slept in this thing one night. This is a cool little overlook. And then this is where they would leave water. So when water was scarce, they would actually leave water for you and it would help out. Here's some of my foraging. Yes, I did not cook these mussels because I did not have a stove, but Farmer Chef cooked these and I actually tried one. And then there's some other food, apples. I forgot about the apples and the onions. Massachusetts, 90 miles. It took me 4 days. Massachusetts was the one place that was very challenging because there was no overnight camping. So what that meant, I followed the rules. I got a shuttle and went to town for every single day until I could get through it. So I think I could have done it in 3 days, but because I had to do all this back and forth. However, it was a great time. I got to see this little baby snapper and it was worth it all right there. Oh, and there were tons of owls. And this is just an idea of when you stay, this was one place I could stay. So I did get to stay in my tent one night in Cheshire. They actually had a place for hikers, which was very cool of them. And you could charge your devices and it was just very cool. Connecticut, 52 miles. Highest point, Bear Mountain. Love Bear Mountain. But my favorite memory was sitting in a field and I don't even know how long I sat there. The weather was perfect. The clouds were moving. It was just perfect. People know about the giant's thumb. It's just this weird thing sticking out of the ground. There's ruins everywhere. This is before I crossed the bridge to New York, and that's the Hudson. And this was a really cool overlook that was a blue blaze, but I hiked up it and then I hiked back down. My sweet friends that I hiked with for a long time, we would go on and off catching each other and they were just great. So we have Tomb Raider and Coconut. What else? Just some pretty photos. New York was quite interesting. First off, you get to New York, so that's the photo. Right after this photo of me standing there, you go through a zoo. I'm not kidding. And it took me 5 days to get through the whole New York area, but part of the zoo, part of the trail was the zoo. So that was really exciting. I will tell you, it was kind of sentimental. I happened to be in New York crossing it during September. So there were a lot of things and it was just there was a very strong feeling for New York. You can see my tent is really wet, but I was dry. I went through this thing called the lemon squeeze where I actually had to take my pack off to go through the trail. And the colors were starting to come up and they were beautiful. You're hiking in the woods and you come across this little box and no joke, it has all these little supplies that you could possibly need. And then the deal is if you have something extra, you can put it in there. New Jersey, 74 miles, highest point, almost 2,000 feet. This is how you would know you crossed over. I made a friend, his name's Jake. I love Jake. He was at a shelter that some people stay in. It's a private one, but it's a great one. Here's High Point State Park. People will know about that. Here are the colors coming again and more fire towers. All right, so earlier I had hurt my hip. I fell and I'm not doing so hot. A friend wanted to come see me and I'm not kidding. She saved me. And then for whatever reason, I guess the trail knew that I needed help because I really was hurting. And so Mira, she was my college roommate. She came out and she helped me get to and from certain areas. And I did this thing called slack packing where I had a pack with me, but it wasn't everything. And that was great. And then one day I got to the top of this one hill and I met these people and I was just talking to them and they're like, hey, would you like to stay in our house tonight? And of course I said yes. And so they, I had to meet them down below. They picked up dinner. I went to their house, had a hot shower. They put me back on the trail where I started and then I carried on. Unbelievable people. So thank you, Debbie. And then Pennsylvania. This one's rough because it's a lot of miles, 230 miles. It took me 17 days. I'm definitely going slower, but look how beautiful it was. Michael came back on the trail to join me for a little bit more. This is one of the little halfway points from a different year. You'll see I have my little mask there because someone did graffiti, so I took it upon myself to hide it with my mask. I hit my 2,000 mark. So that was my milestone because I've done my trip in a weird way. Furnaces, I'd never heard of them, but that was kind of cool. Got to see those all over the place. Beautiful fall. I'm playing in the leaves. Cornfields that are just magical. All right, I'm almost done, believe it or not. So I want to do a little talk about this. Every year it's a little different. So 2014, it was 2,185. In 2020, it was 2,193. So there's a different halfway point. So they put up a memorial, not a memorial, but a remembrance, a celebration placard. We have a little bear with a mask, and the pole was signed by people, which I loved because I could see people that I knew. And it basically said remembrance, AT closure and reopening 2020 halfway, Georgia to Maine. And this was in Pennsylvania, the halfway point. So, and I love the keep moving forward, kind of a good phrase for life. So I wanted to give a little shout out to my fellow thru hikers. If you're online, 2020 thru hikers were really the unofficial keepers of the trail. We would clean up after others. There were a lot of new hikers out there who really didn't know what was going on, and they were day hikers. People hit the trail because of COVID. So we were, you know, kind of sort of, we took it upon ourselves to clean up. So when I talk about our packs being light, trust me, people who went in, normally your pack gets lighter, but it was possible for your pack to get heavier as you went through a section. We would sweep out, I would personally sweep out privies, even though they were, some were closed and they were locked, but some privies that said use at your own risk. So we kind of took it upon ourselves to just make things better. Sometimes people would leave like extra toilet paper, clear out the trail. Somebody was going around putting hand sanitizers. I hiked with people who were very good at flicking sticks and moving things out of the way of the trail. And everyone just kind of kept a good old eye out. So I wanted to give a shout out because that really was one of the special memories of 2020 for me. Maryland, no joke. I'm in Maryland. I'm almost done. I've got 2 states left, 41 miles. I'm getting down low now. Favorite memory? I cannot even explain it. You can't see it. I know it doesn't look like a great photo, but there is a bald eagle that just showed up out of nowhere. Snakes, deer. My last couple days, the animals just came out in full force, and it was just amazing. Michael came back on the trail because he would hop on and off for different reasons, and so he did the last few miles with, or last few days with me. And the fall colors. This was interesting. I don't really like graffiti, but it was actually kind of cool. You know, it's just what it is. And this is, I can see when I cross that water down there, I am done with my hike. And so I'm just sitting here taking it all in on this little ledge. And there's a saying I have, the trail reveals itself as you move forward, sort of kind of like life. I am now in West Virginia, 4 miles. The highest point is not very high. Favorite memory was crossing that bridge. Remember the train derailment? Well, they fixed it. So I was able to cross the bridge and finish Harper's Ferry. It doesn't take you long, but I stretched it out as much as I could. I cannot describe it. And it was cool. Someone I had met in New Hampshire heard or knew that I was about to finish and waited for me and then popped up and said hi. And that's just how cool this place, the trail is, the community. All right, so this is some fun stuff. So I'm gonna go through this. I made it, my promise was to try to get you guys at the top of the hour through all the states. Now I'm gonna just show some little random slides. Here are some treasures I found along the trail. I found horseshoes and bottles, and not garbage, it was treasure. They were cool things, and I would take photos and leave them be. Oh yeah, injuries, boo-boos. I know it's not pretty to look at this, but I had black toenails and I had blisters and I tore little muscles in my legs and I had plantar fasciitis, and I kept moving, but by no means can I say that I was unscathed, but I was not going to stop. So there's an organization, we talked about the ATC, well, there's an organization called ALDA that, bless their hearts, they recognized hikers, and so they sent me a certificate for my hike and a little patch. This photo is my last white blaze where I finished. So it's not quite as epic as going on top of Katahdin or the, you know, even Springer, but I will take it. I loved it. There's a saying, more heart than heel, and boy, that is the truth. You gotta want it. Someone put together a thing saying that there were 294 finishers in 2020, and I was number 88 as far as how long it took me to do it. And I was one of 83 of hikers who paused for COVID closures, because some people just kept hiking. Some people bounced all over the place. Some people started after like May or June. And I have a friend two friends who just finished. Here's about the water. Sometimes you put a leaf so it can funnel. I filtered my water, and I'm not lying, I missed my filtered water. I loved it. I played with different systems, but I enjoyed having this on hand so I could fill up quickly and keep moving. Someone created a cool little water trough thing. You got water that you can pump. I filtered everything no matter what. Shelters. These are just some of the shelters. In the very beginning, some of these, like these are in the Smokies before COVID stuff. And then this is a very old one that you would never sleep in. And then I didn't stay in shelters really after COVID. If you did, and the shelter was open, you did it with a family unit. So like this was my tramily. So I stayed in here with them. And that's who I hiked with for basically a month and a half almost. Privies. Yep, I got a kick out of privies. Bathrooms. Pretty ones. This one's locked. This one is just a normal one, but it looks like it has a throne. Sometimes they had fake little flushers. Metal ones. This one actually had a two-seater and a game you could play, cribbage. This one was unique because you did number 1 here and you did number 2 here. Hope that means something to you guys. This one was actually my favorite. I was all by myself, but there are no walls. So that was my bathroom. This, you could put the toilet paper in here, put it in the can, and then the little mice don't have a field day with it. So again, we tried to keep these places. We'd come in and you could see the mess, and then I'd come in if there was a broom and I would try to clean it up. I tried to take a photo of every new plant that I saw. And I'm sure I missed stuff, but that was part of my fun and made me think of Stu because he was always good with that. And mushrooms galore. Oh my gosh, so many beautiful mushrooms. And I don't know if these are mushrooms or plants. I really don't know what they are. Beautiful flowers with, of course, the perfect little bee flying in. Bears. I wanted to have a little thing dedicated to bears. I had so many firsts. I threw my first bear hang. They had bear boxes. Some people had bear canisters. This was just a cute little cartoon. A lot of people would do bear hangs, but they weren't doing them right, so the bears could get it. I had some friends who lost some things. This is hard to tell, but there's actually a line that's up that was already there that you could use. My suggestion would be to tent away from the shelters, eat away from your tent, and just be tidy. General good food practices. So many accommodations. I stayed in this big open space that was like a church converted into a hostel. I stayed in this camper that I showed you earlier, bunk houses. These are my non-tent options. Hostels, some were very simple. And then I even stayed in some really nice hotels. And for whatever reason, I didn't have any photos of those. Lessons learned. I did not need to cut 13 inches of my hair off. When I unplugged, it was really a nice thing to do, especially when the whole world turned upside down. I let people know. I had some people like family and friends that I let know where I was and I was okay. But at some point, I just stopped looking at even Facebook for a little while because it was just kind of freaking me out. And then slow down and enjoy. Take it all. Take your naps. Take more videos with narration. I didn't do it on purpose, but I did some videos where I'd say, oh, I'm on the top of Max Patch. And I'm so thankful for those videos. Eat real food. Take more photos of hikers. Be kind to everyone because you just don't know what their situation is. Don't use an alarm before you start hiking that sounds like birds chirping because that is not a good thing to get conditioned to. Trust me on that one. And then, of course, hike your own hike. So, that's the best I could do. Hope it wasn't too long. So here we are. This is kind of a fun little thing. Maine. This chair actually said Maine, and then this other chair over here said Georgia, and my friend Coconut said, hey, I'll do a panoramic, and you sit here and then run over here behind me and get on this side. So this was a one-shot photo, but it was kind of funny, and it made me kind of think of the trail. So here are some things, if you want to go out there and look for more information, if you happen to do TikTok, I have some fun little how-tos in TikTok. Appalachian Trail 2020, I have my photos that I shared with family and friends. And then I do have an Instagram, which really doesn't have that much, but I do have a few things out there. So now, any questions?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Kim. That was so fun.
Did I do okay?
I don't think I've smiled this much, just kind of reliving your experiences, and I can hear the smile in your voice and it makes me smile. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And there are a couple questions that came in the chat, and everybody can keep throwing them in. I will try to keep up. But if you're good, we can start on those.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So first, I got, how did you get your trail name, Muon?
Okay, so this is definitely a totally Los Alamos thing. So I actually had a little slide later that I could pop to if I wanted to. But basically, this is so fun. I don't know if these people are online, but I started out at Amicalola, and I was sitting around the table, and I had some names and some things and whatever in my head. And I was kind of bouncing around some ideas, because some people, you want to earn your trail name. So I purposely started talking a little bit about work, because I kind of sort of wanted this to stick. And a person, I'm being very honest here, because some people would never admit that. And so this father said, oh, that's a subparticle. And his son was there, who was going to do the through hike, about the same age as Ruby. And this kid was like, I don't know what that is. And so the father goes to explain it, and he's like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And so then he's like, you need to make that your trail name. I'm like, I want it to be my trail name. And his trail name ended up being Hot Tea. So anyway, I then really liked it, because I started playing with that while I was hiking, and in my head. And I love the moon and the sun. And if you look at it, it's actually kind of the words moon and sun intertwined. So it kind of just stuck. And it's very hard to remember for most people. And I kind of sort of liked that. I kind of wanted to be like, because remember, I started this hike wanting to be solo and antisocial. So there you go.
All right, thank you. Next, we had a couple comments from Radar, who I know you showed a picture of early on. So he's online with us, and wants to know, first he said, you're the best, and he absolutely loves you. That he hiked with you for a while. And
He's great.
And then please explain what your shakedown hike is, and what did you learn on it?
Ooh, okay, that's really good. And I will tell you, I didn't do a shakedown like probably as I should have, because I guess I like the element of surprise, but I used my pack for the first time, because I got a new lighter pack, and I took the brain off of it, so it'd be a little bit lighter. So I wanted to make sure everything would fit in it. I purposely wanted to go in the snow so I could practice my little crampons, they're really called micro spikes. And I was experimenting, like, do I really like my poles? They were brand new poles. Do I like my sleep setup? How am I with my tent? It was quite interesting. And, how did I feel after that weight? And, some people practice for a long time, and I just figured I was going to go slow and work my way into it. But it did help me realize, how my body was going to handle, how could I adjust my pack the best way? And then honestly, just getting on the trail is one of the ways to just get out there. But I never filtered water until the trail. And that's ridiculous. You should do it beforehand. But I learned how to use my filter system on the trail. So there you go. Good question, Radar. And thank you so much for calling in.
So was it a long distance? What can you just define shakedown?
My shakedown, this one happened to be it was funny. I did it with a friend, and it actually ended up being even a little bit of a night hike, because I did it after work. And so I started like at 6:00 p.m. and we lost sunlight pretty quickly. And we hiked to this little place, this little cabin, and it was in the woods, and then stayed the night. So I wanted to spend the night on the woods and then come back. And it was about, I don't know if he's online, but I thought it was like 10 miles round trip. So it wasn't really the shakedown was really just to test my equipment. Awesome. And me.
Right, try everything out. That's great. Did you carry cash or cards? And what worked?
I need to, okay. So I'm going to admit this. I don't know, hope this is a safe setting to do this, but I took photos of all my cards just in case I lost them. They were on my phone. And like my insurance card and that kind of stuff. And I did keep my insurance. My awesome employer, like PM Tech, they kept me on the books so that I could have insurance, and I kept doing things throughout, so that helped. Then I also had cash, because you need cash on the trail. I would mail on my little boxes. I would actually have, and they say not to do this, so don't follow my advice, but I mailed a $100 bill to me every single time that I got a drop. So I didn't have to go to an ATM. And you just have to remember that you put it inside the toilet paper roll. That's the key, because I forgot that. But someone might have gotten a little surprise in their toilet paper. But that's it. So I did both. You need both.
So a couple people asked if all of your photos were from your phone or did you carry a camera?
Because everyone knows me, I have a real camera, but no, I went light. So I only carried, that was my phone on my camera.
Awesome, thank you. I'm just going through here, bear with me, catching up on the chat. Oh, Carmen Rodriguez says she's very, very proud of you and
Love you,
send
Carmen. Thank
hugs.
you. Aw, everyone's so great.
Just lots of thank yous coming in, lots of, great thanks for sharing your grand adventure. One question about safety. Did you feel safe the whole time? Did you ever get lost?
Okay, this is great. And you're never lost because you always have yourself. But yes, okay, I felt safe. I did not carry a gun. There's actually parts on the trail they do not want you carrying a gun, but I did not carry a gun. So safety. I always let people know where I was going to be, but not publicly. In other words, there's certain things you can do to be safe, and telling people ahead of time, hey, I'm going to be at this shelter tonight is not one of them. And then actually Radar is one of the, I don't know if he's still on, but I never really hiked so much with him, but he was always in front and behind me. And I always liked that because then it was a give and take, but I was kind of in their space, these people that were hiking, because again, I was by myself. I did have one scare, and it was at night in Vermont. I was going to sleep, it was dark, and there was a ton of gunfire. And I'm not afraid of gunfire, because I get it shooting, but it was dark. And I was just afraid that I might be in their crossfire. And so it stopped and everything was fine. But that was the one time I'm like, I'm out here by myself. But for the most part, I tried to, do things to be safe. I never night hiked unless I had someone night hiking with me. And yeah, that's about it. Great question.
Thank you. All those measurements that you took at the beginning, your blood work and everything, did you redo that at the end and anything
I did
change?
not show a picture, but it was unbelievable. It was phenomenal. I did go back and get it done. Now, so I ended up losing about, I should have made a slide for this. I ended up losing about 3 pounds, which was fine. I lost 2 to 3 inches, which is unbelievable. My bone density stayed fine because I actually thought maybe my bone density would go bad because maybe I wasn't getting the nutrients, but my bone density stayed the same. The person who did my measurements said it was just phenomenal, the change that my body took in such a short time.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, what was one thing you wish wish you'd taken with you that you didn't have, and something that, what did you take with you that you would wish you hadn't, you would discard on future trips?
I'm probably gonna show something because I didn't write down what slide number, but I'm gonna see if, because I thought I had this. These are no-go, abort. Okay, one is a bodysuit for mosquito netting. I'm so embarrassed that I even had that with me, but I'm just telling you right now I did. I'll confess to that. The other were these little water things that cost nothing, but they go over my shoe. If they lasted, they didn't even last a day. But it was kind of me being creative. So that was me being silly. And those are the no-goes. What was the other question? The first part of it was what I wish I would have brought.
Yeah, something you wish you would had.
So no joke, because I kind of sort of got a do-over. I started the trail and I went home and regrouped. I had exactly what I wanted on the trail. There was never I wished I would have had this. People told me to get an umbrella, and I had an umbrella from day one, and I loved my umbrella. Does that make sense? So I actually had everything I wanted on the trail. So I'll just show this because I'm here. My average miles, this is kind of fun if you look at some of this. It's not the whole hike, but this was just a little snapshot. This March was before COVID. and kind of sort, yeah, we'll just say before COVID. Then I went back to Vegas and I really worked my little heart out. I actually went back to work. The wonderful people hired me and let me work again. Then I got back on the trail. Remember, it was like in the end of June. So you can see this, and then boing, look at July. So, and then there was something here. There's my tent. It was basically a two, it was, you can't tell, but it was under 2 pounds. And this is the ways I reduced weight. I put my duct tape on my poles. I cut my hair, which is so silly. I would remove the little container out of the toilet paper. I removed the brain from my pack. I removed all the tags that I had. Nothing had tags in it. I reduced my number of stuff sacks, and everything had multi-purposes. So like I did have a stuff sack that I made into a pillow, and it kept my stuff dry. I had toothpaste tablets. I did not carry a stove, and that's about it. So I thought that was kind of fun. I think I just showed you everything.
Very interesting. Yeah, you kind of had it dialed in by that second half. All right. Will you go back, or is there a next trail on your list?
That was this thing. Good question, whoever asked that. And so basically, it's funny because I'm in Florida right now. So I've been playing on the Florida Trail a little bit, but not actively. I have so many friends who are doing the PCT this year. I had a friend who did the Arizona Trail. I know people that have done the Continental Divide, but right now, no, I'm definitely taking a break. It was a little tiring, honestly. And so I'm letting my feet heal. They're all good now, but I definitely, my body is ready to take a break. So I'm just enjoying beaches.
Beaches sound nice with the weather we have rolling in right now.
And in all honesty, so many people are hiking right now because the ones who got off the trail last year are hiking, and then the people who wanted to hike are hiking. And so I probably will give it a few years anyway, just so that this bubble, this thing that's happening can settle down.
It is a bit of a, well, there are some crowded trails right now.
Yes, so I want to take a break.
Okay, so how did you plan for your drop-off boxes?
Oh my goodness. So I don't even know if Paul's online, but basically I decided what I wanted in them. And I even put things in there. I don't know how, but when you have kids, you somehow end up with extra like nail clippers. So all of a sudden, the kids are in college and I have like 6 pairs of nail clippers. So I actually made and put in my boxes like nail clippers. And so I didn't carry nail clippers. They would show up magically in my box, and then I would donate them to the hiker box. Okay. So on these hiker boxes, I didn't really explain that, but basically people that don't want something, they put it in a hiker box, and it's kind of a give and take. And so I always tried to feed the hiker box, and the hiker box, I could have different shirts and pants and shorts and sunglasses and you name it. I got it out of the hiker box, even food, like tuna packets or whatever. Okay. What was the other part of the question?
I guess mailing, how did you arrange?
So, yeah. So the way to pick, before COVID, I had them going to outfitters or even hostels. Well, you know what? Some of those places shut down and closed. So when I went back on the trail, I had them mailed to, typically I had a different setup, but you can mail them to post offices because the post offices would stay open. And so I just had different places. But what I did is I had a friend, Paul, who is the one who helped me dial in my diet. And he had all my boxes and they weren't addressed. And then I would send him a thing about a week before I wanted it. And then he would throw it in the mail. And then it would show up magically where I needed it.
All right. Let's see. Sorry, there's a couple repeat questions that we already got to. How many liters was your pack?
Oh, Lordy, I don't know that number. It was, I could go run and look at it. It was, I don't remember. It's an Osprey, EJA. And base, I don't know. It was not the large one and it was not the small one. It was one in between. So whatever the blue Osprey, I should look that up.
Yeah.
Who was that? Who asked that question?
Oh, it says iPad KGG.
Okay, I don't know who that is, but if they want to write you, I'll be happy to let them know later. But if you look up Osprey, and you'll see what it is. And it's a female pack, so it fit really well. Oh, and fun fact, I know everyone probably already knows this, but your backpack, most likely, if it's a relatively new one, has a whistle on it. It's part of the buckle. I'm sure everyone knows that, but there's a whistle on your pack. So go look at your pack and you'll probably look and see and go, oh my goodness, I didn't know there was a whistle. Fun fact.
Yes, those are awesome that they include those these days.
Yes.
Did you rely on GPS to route find, or how was it with all the blazes?
Wow, I should talk about that. So real quick, it's called gut hooks. It's the main way. So you follow the little white blazes, but there is an app out there that you can buy, and it's from a fellow hiker. That's why it's called Gut Hook. That was his trail name. And it will tell you so much. You get little sections of the trail, and then you basically just follow, whatever you're doing, and it'll tell you how far it is to the next water source. Some people don't use those. Some people like to, use paper. Some people like to be surprised. But it really is a nice way to kind of know what's going on. Like if there's bear activity somewhere, people will write in there that there's bear activity. If a water has run dry, or a really good note one someone gave was there was a really pretty water source, but evidently there was a dead deer in the water above it that you couldn't see until later. So they put that in this little app. So when you got to that water source, you knew, you don't want that water.
Great. So like regular updates on there.
Yep.
And everything.
Live updates. Plus I used it to check in so people could see where I was after the fact. So, and only a select group of people that I wanted to show.
Wow, that's super convenient. Is there a cost for the app, or is it free?
It costs, and people typically buy it at a certain time when it goes on sale. It's like 100 something. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. But it's definitely worth the money, however much it costs. I just know that people try to buy it. It goes on sale every now and then. So they'll, on the Facebook group for Appalachian Trail stuff, they'll say, okay, it's going on sale, and then everyone will buy it.
All right. So a couple questions about the age of people you met through other through hikers. Who was the oldest that you know of, and like an average age?
So this year was a little unique, I think, because I think the party crowd really decided this was not their scene. And so they hopped off. But I can't say it was, there were people that were older. And I would say I met at least one or two in their 80s, or I'll say late 70s. But the youngest unassisted kid went this year with her family. I am not kidding. I swear she was like 4 years old, unassisted. And they did the whole thing this year in 2020. You can look it up because it's out there somewhere. And Mercury did it in like a little under 54 days. So this is a lady who, she was a young lady, but, and she was supported, people helped her, but in other words, they carried her stuff basically, but she did the whole trail in like 54 days. So about 100 days faster than me.
Wow.
With a broken toe.
Oh my gosh, that puts it into perspective for sure.
Yeah, or broken foot, I should say.
Did you ever get to see the huts in the White Mountains?
So I did, and I remember the first one I saw was in the Wildcats, and they were actually serving breakfast. You couldn't go in the hut, but it was open for food. They had a window and all the COVID restrictions. So you couldn't stay in any of the huts this year, but some of them served food, and I'm not kidding, a hot soup for $5, heavenly. This one girl she made the huts are so remote that these people stay out there for, several weeks, if not longer. And they basically serve food until they run out. So the huts were very nice. But I didn't stay in any of them.
All right. What about bear spray? Did you carry bear spray?
I did not carry bear spray, but I really did try to make myself as unappealing as possible. I did not wear any smelly, yummy stuff like deodorant, or I even, I tried to limit anything that had a lot of fragrance for bugs, as well as I didn't want to be enticing to critters. And I did have a lot of bear encounters, but nothing bad.
Well, that's good. One question about your packing list, and would you be willing to share it?
Oh, Yeah. Just what I carried, like more detail.
Yeah, just a list of the items in your pack.
Yeah, I can do the main items because you got to understand it was very fluid, you know, because, you know, and I will probably hone it into the thing that you kind of just want to have, not because you know, in the beginning I had micro spikes, but I sure didn't need them after I got off the trail and back on. So there are certain things that would come and go. So yes, I can do that. And I'll just email it to you.
All right, so yeah, Bernice, if you want to just reply to any of those emails that you got about the meeting, with the meeting link or any of those, and I can follow up and get that.
Is it Bernice Williams?
It is Bernice Williams. Yes.
Okay, I can write her, especially
Okay.
if she's going to give it to Sean. So that's cool.
All right, perfect.
Bernice, I'll take care of you.
Okay. Somebody said that, well, actually multiple people said you should plan another trail for age 60, turn 60 on another trail.
Hey, I like that.
A couple questions about cell phone coverage, and somebody asked if you had thought of renting or renting a satellite phone.
Okay. So I went ultralight, and I'm not telling people to do this, okay? But I did not do that. However, my phone did really well. And of all times, I have Verizon, and Verizon did very well. Michael, 5 o'clock, had AT&T, and there was one point in the trail where I did not get good coverage with Verizon, and no joke, that's when he had good service with AT&T. So I almost always had good coverage. But to keep my battery down, I would almost always have my phone in airplane mode because I didn't want to, chew up my battery.
All right. One request to say the name of the app again. Is it Gut Hook?
Yes, Gut Hook, GUTHOOK. He has one you can buy for the PCT. I think there's one for the CDT. So he's done a phenomenal thing.
All right. Sorry, I put that into the chat and then I lost my place. Question about how did you stay mentally motivated throughout? Did you have any struggles keeping going?
Okay, so I can honestly tell you, getting off the trail in March, I remember I told you I was going to try to process stuff, and I was not done, because both my parents are gone, and there's some other things, and I was using the trail, and I would give it dedicated focus to work things out in my head. I never listened to a book on tape. I never did podcasts. I never listened to music. It really was me in the forest. And I know that sounds very boring to some people, but I guess I have a very active imagination because it was enough. So I never ever thought about getting off the trail. I never got bored. There were times that I was in pain, but then I would just start singing, and singing would take the pain away. But if you sing, then you may not see cool animals. So you have to make a trade-off. But no, I never, ever got bored. I literally think I have decided I could live on the trail in the woods and call it good.
Okay. So I did just put the email address in the chat for PEEC, our main email address. So if you have any comments or if you think of questions later, oh gosh, one more just came in. Speaking of which, what was your most memorable day on the trail?
That's actually pretty easy for me. My most memorable was the way everything played out. I ended up being on McAfee Knob. Remember that iconic photo my friend Todd took that made me want to do the trail? So I had been wanting to do McAfee Knob, and that's actually why I got off the trail before COVID. Or I'm sorry, after the COVID thing, because all these trails were closing, and that was one of them that was closed in front of me. So I really was waiting to do that without having to, sneak around and do it without anyone seeing me. I wanted to enjoy it. I spent almost the entire day up there. My friend Steve, that with his girlfriend, hiked part of the trail with me. He brought me some more food, and we all enjoyed that day up there. And I spent almost the entire day watching crowds of people come and go. They'd come get a photo and leave. Well, it was the 4th of July, so I could overlook Roanoke, and we watched the 4th of July fireworks from up there. it was just the most amazing day. The weather was perfect. It was just amazing.
Uh-oh. Somebody said, Rocky says, ask you why wasn't it when you met your friend who brought you to the trail?
Oh, you have no idea what she's talking about, and it's awesome. This is epic. Like, this will tell you what the trail people are like. So Rocky is the one who brought me on the trail. And then she actually, so she was a trail angel, but she also did the trail. And she was, when I said the Arizona trail, she's also the one who hopped on the Arizona for a little bit because she was trying to find her way to hike even when things were crazy. Well, she hikes seriously like a mad woman. She can do miles like I could never do. My biggest day was 27 miles, and I did that one time, okay, in one day. She did this on a regular basis. But the long story short is I was about to leave a place to get back on the trail, and we were going to merge. Our timing was going to overlap. Well, they had trouble getting her, but she had hiked 30, I think she hiked 30, she can correct me, but 30 miles to come see me. And I was about to leave, and these people that I was with, it was a shuttle. I had to leave when they wanted to leave. I only got to see, she hiked 30 hours to catch up with me, and I got to see her for like 15 minutes. And that photo, just so you know, is in this presentation because it was such an epic thing. So Rocky, I made sure to put that photo in there.
Wow, absolute friendship right there.
She's amazing. And she's going to do the trail again this year.
Wow. Okay, so I think that's it so far for questions. A lot of people just said thank you so much again. Absolutely inspiring. A couple of people said that, you know, I'm researching the PCT. I'm researching the Colorado Trail. Oh gosh, I'm just scrolling. Rocky sent back another. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, make sure people, you know, they just make sure you hike your own hike. It's so easy to get caught up in other people's way of doing things. When you go out there, really, the trail will tell you, I truly mean this, the trail will tell you what to do. And just listen to it and you will be okay.
And I think, like you were saying, you know, the trail will tell you, and we had another question of what are you doing now? And you said you're exploring in Florida, and you know, maybe you'll come upon something that'll inspire your next trip, like so that photo.
Yeah, I'm really not far from the Florida Trail, so I've already gone out there, and you know, it's kind of funny to hike a trail that's, you know, not anything like the AT, and you know, come across an alligator. I'm like, wow, this is different. So so yeah, I'm giving my body a break.
All right, if there's any last minute questions, I'll keep watching, but want to let anybody go if you need to. And if anybody would like to join us again, our usual astronomy talk is this Friday evening again at 7, and you can look at the PEEC website for more information and to register for that. Thanks everybody again for tuning in. Uh-oh, Rocky says you should come do the North Country Trail with her next year.
Is that what her brother, I don't know if that's what her brother did, but that's interesting. And I will tell you, someone just wrote me that I did not know was on the call or the presentation. Do you remember when I was talking about the pemmican, that I did a barter with some food to get pemmican? The lady that made the pemmican actually called in and watched the show tonight, presentation tonight. So I'm so excited that Kathy got to hear it.
I have to ask, what is pemmican?
Pemmican. She can probably tell you better than I can, but pemmican is not, you do not eat it for yumminess. You eat it because it is tallow, beef, like dried beef. And then some people put dried fruit in there. It's kind of a Native American way of getting nutrients, little power pack nutrients. And she traded me because she made a whole bunch of it. And we actually hiked together early on. And I cannot remember how old she was, but she was older than I was, and she was a rock star. She was just amazing.
All right, so nutritious, not necessarily delicious.
Yeah, look up pemmican, because you guys could actually do a talk and maybe even teach people how to make it. That would be a fun PEEC activity.
Ooh, pemmican. All right, now it's on my notes. Okay, somebody sent a URL. I'll check it out before I share it, but
It's probably on Pemmican.
it's not coming up with anything. Okay, so I think that's it. And thank you. Thanks everybody again for tuning in. Kim, thank you so much for sharing, and for the Mountaineers for bringing you on. And in North Dakota, pemmican is made with buffalo.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, all right, little variety in there. All right, learning new things every minute. Thanks so much again, Kim. It was great to meet you and kind of share this trip with you. And maybe we'll see you on the trail someday. Let us know when you're back in Los Alamos. And
so I still have my home in New Mexico, Los Alamos. So y'all aren't done with me yet.
So we'll see you back here someday.
Yes.
And all right. Thanks again. And thanks everybody else for coming tonight. We will hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.